All right, I'm working on the boat again. Today is January 1st of 2024, and I actually started a couple days ago with some light work just to see how I would feel, and that went well. So I'm going to continue working on the boat now. All right. The first thing that I did was to remove the sandbags and the plastic from the cedar strips that I had epoxied on previously, and they turned out quite well. There is some gaps in here that I'll need to fill in. And then what I did was I measured and cut some more pieces of cedar to go in, and I'm getting ready to glue those on now. I just finished gluing on these two rows from this point down to the end and from this point down to the end. And there's a problem here that I need to fix before I continue too much further. You see, when I glued this board on, it had a bit of a bend to it, so it caused this tip to stick out a bit. And then when I glued this piece on, it couldn't really sit up flush with this one, so there's a gap here. Never mind that, that'll be filled in with epoxy. But I'm now sticking out a bit here on this side and a bit on this side. So if I don't fix this, I think the problem is just going to continue all the way from here to the end, and I'd rather go ahead and fix it now. So what I'm going to do is cut off a little piece of wood from here to here and see if that fixes it. Alright, that worked out well. By carefully controlling the depth of the cut with the circular saw, I was able to trim this off flush with the wood. I'll need to do a little bit of cleanup, but that is fairly straight all along here until that point right there. So with a little bit of cleanup, it should be ready for the next series of cedar strips to be glued down. I'm down to the last piece, or the last row of the planking on this side of the hull, and so it's this thin strip right in here that still needs to be planked. It gets a little wider down here, and this is the board that I want to put on it, and the board has a bit of a bow in it, so you can see I've got a line stretched, and you can see that there's quite a bit of a bow here. It comes out a little more than a ½ inch, and I've got it going to the end here and down to the end there. Now normally I would just flip this board over so that the bow was out and use a clamp like this to clamp it in to pull that bow straight. But I've got these 18-inch clamps, and they're good enough to go from the edge here. There's a little bit of a overhang of the wood that's sticking out, a little bit of a lip here sticking out, that I can get the edge of the clamp on this side, and it's just long enough to pull this, but I'm not going to be able to get it out all the way to here. So what I need to do is cut this board along this line so that I can remove the bow first and get a straight edge to come up against here. Alright, so now that I've got the line set up, I'm going to go ahead and cut this. I'll just probably use the jigsaw to cut this. Alright, so there's the piece that I cut off. It goes from about this of a thickness down to at the end here, not very thick at all. So there is definitely a bow there that this will fix. And then the other thing that I try to do is I try to watch out for here. You can see, let me come here in the light. I don't know if you can see this or not, but yeah, there's a good angle. You can see that the edge of this board is cracked here, and this is a board that I would normally not want to use, or maybe cut this part off, but because this is the last piece, I'm really only needing this part of the board right here. So when I glue this on later, this will all be trimmed off, and all this cracked wood here will be trimmed off, and then I'll be able to use this board that I otherwise would not have really used, or I would have just cut this part off completely. So, all right, well, it's time to glue this board on. All right, all of the planking has now been epoxied onto this side of the hull, and the next step is going to be to remove a lot of this excess epoxy that is sticking up here that was difficult to wipe away because I would put the plastic on top of it and then put the sandbags on top of the plastic, and that caused the extra squeeze out. And once the sandbags were there, I didn't want to be removing them to remove the plastic and then to wipe it down. So there's a lot of epoxy that needs to be sanded off. And there's also places like this where I need to fill in these gaps. So I'll come along and put some thickened epoxy in here. But other than that, this is fully planked and ready to be sanded. And once it's all sanded and cleaned up and the gaps are filled in, then I'll need to also come along and trim this off with the plywood underneath. So I'll have to flip the entire hull side over to be able to cut the cedar planks that hang over the edge and trim them off to the plywood so that we have a nice curved edge again. All right, well, I think that's actually going to be enough for this video, so I'm going to get this posted so you can see the current progress on the sailboat. All right, bye.